Welcome to the show. I'm James.
I'm David.
I'm Riley.
And today we are discussing Mad Max Fury Road, also known as Mad Max 4, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We'll laugh.
No one calls it that.
We'll argue. We might get a little too into it, but at the end of the day, they're just movies.
Spoiler alert.
Not bad.
You're too generous.
Not bad for a black film.
spoiler run.
Spoiler run.
To Spoiler Town. All the places are named very straightforward.
That's what happens with radiation.
Apocalypse Net Land.
I thought you were say apocalypse noun. Anyways, next week we're going to do, apparently, this anime movie called Belle. It's an anime metaverse Beauty and the Beast tale.
Looks really cool.
It's like Japanese, and it's like a cartoon, but Japanese people make it.
Jesus Christ.
He's not wrong. All right, but today it's Mad Max Fury Road all day. So, David, you're first. I don't know why, but you go first, and you tell us.
Best save for last. That's why I'm first.
No!
Well, you need a strong opener. So,
no,
anyway,
Today's his week.
You have strong opinions.
I can't imagine anything on screen more intense than Mad Max. Fury Road is perfect. Almost.
Oh.
9.4 out of 10.
Wow.
This movie is fucking incredible from
Holy
start to finish.
shite.
There's definitely like little dips, and there's moments where you see the age of it, but there is such a strong vision and a unique tone and intensity to this movie that nothing else can scratch. I love this movie.
Wow.
scratch. Interesting. Riley.
Oh, man. Why does this always happen?
Uh-oh.
What a film. What a lovely film.
I see what you're doing.
Especially if you really like over-the-top vehicular warfare with some seeds of substance. Would have liked some of those seeds to grow a bit more, but it's a dumb fun movie. I don't know. I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10 because I enjoyed it. It's on the upper side of the fives, but I just don't find like a ton of substance there for me to really like latch onto and like feel with like a deep part of my being. It's fun. There's explosions. It's fun. And that's basically it.
All right, witness me.
All right.
No.
Mad Max Fury Road is like a finely engineered machine designed to scratch a very specific itch. If you got that itch, it's a 10.
Right.
I don't though, so 7.
Hey.
Like it is a technical masterpiece. It's so sick that it's mostly practical. I can't believe they did what they've done.
It's true.
But not a lot of story. Like if you like car chases, if you're a gearhead,
Yeah.
if you're from Australia, you probably love this movie.
There's not a ton of Australian accents though.
Well, everyone's yelling this. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't tell. You can't tell. Past a certain level of volume, accents just go away.
Furiosa doesn't have. Some of the women
That's
don't.
why she's mad.
Same with Max.
I didn't get the cool voice. Come on.
I'm really excited to talk about this because I think we have lots to discuss.
Right after this message from our sponsor, Secret Lab Chairs. Secret Lab Chairs, they're engineered to keep you comfortable for long hours at work and play and podcast. Their Titan Evo 2022 series chair, which I'm sitting on, I think, offers a 4-way lumbar support, comes with magnetic memory foam head pillow. Oh, yeah, I confirm.
That's what
Mine's
it
behind
sounds
my
like.
head.
Can you hear it?
Kind of. Yeah, it's actually that sigh you heard. That came out of the pillow. There's hybrid leatherette, there's soft weave fabric, and there's Napa leather. I'm a leather, not a hater. With up to a 5-year extended warranty and 49-day return policy, you're covered if anything goes wrong. So learn more about Secret Lab at lmg.gg/secretlabtjm.
I will.
Also, thanks Storyblocks. Thanks for sponsoring us, y'all.
Ooh.
You ever needed a quick clip for a video, but didn't have the capacity to make it yourself? You know, because there's not enough room on your hard drive?
Didn't want to go through our podcast trying to look for it?
Storyblocks has more than 1 million royalty-free assets for you to choose from, including 4K HD footage, Adobe templates, music, images, and a wide array of diverse and inclusive content. There are subscriptions for every budget, so you can choose a plan that works for you. From their unlimited all-access plan that gives you unlimited, guess what, video and audio downloads, to their enterprise licensing, so your entire company has access to assets you need when you need them. We use Storyblocks at Alliance Tech Tips, so take your videos to the next level by checking out Storyblocks today at storyblocks.com/carpool.
Tech linked, tech quickie, essential. That's all I wanted to say, James.
Okay. I'm done. Why don't you give it the synopsis of this movie, Riley?
Here's what happened, guys.
Make yourself useful.
In a post-apocalyptic wasteland, Max, a nomad warrior haunted by those he failed to save, is captured and taken to Warlord Immortan Joe's citadel, where he's used as a blood bag for a sick war boy called Nux. You know war boys. Meanwhile, one of Joe's lieutenants, Imperator? How do you say that?
Impersonator.
Furiosa is sent to retrieve gas and bullets in her armored war rig, but Joe discovers she's actually fleeing with his 5 young wives, so he leads his army in pursuit. With Max strapped to his car, Nux tries to sacrifice himself to stop the war rig as it drives into a sandstorm, but Max prevents this and the car is destroyed. After the storm, Max finds Furiosa repairing the rig and tries to steal it, but only Furiosa knows the ignition sequence, so he reluctantly lets the women on board. Nux boards the rig but is thrown out and picked up by Joe's army. After passing through a canyon, the war rig is attacked by a biker gang and Joe himself, who is disappointed when Nux leaps aboard the war rig, but once again, falls. Fails? Falls?
Both.
Same thing.
Oh.
One of Joe's pregnant wives. One of them. They're two pregnant ones.
Yep.
The splendid Angarad falls off the rig and is run over by Joe's car, which swerves and topples over. Safe for the moment, Furiosa tells Max they're headed for the idyllic green place, while the wife, called Capable, finds and consoles a disillusioned Nux hiding in the rig. And when the rig gets stuck in a muddy swamp, Nux helps them escape. Eventually, the rig's crew comes upon the Vuvalini, a clan of women from whom Furiosa was kidnapped as a child. Furiosa is devastated to learn the swamp is all that's left of the green place and makes plans to ride with the Vuvalini across the immense salt flats in search of a new home.
That's the ocean, but dried up, right?
Is it?
That's what I gathered.
I don't know
Anyway.
what salt flats are. But Max, we can Google it. Reminded of his failures, Max remembers how to talk and convinces the women to return to the undefended citadel, which has ample water and greenery. On the road back, intense fighting leads to many of the Vuvalini and Joe's forces being killed, and Furiosa seriously wounded. But the Imperator eventually kills Joe, and Nux sacrifices himself to block the canyon with the war rig, allowing the good guys to escape in Joe's car. Max gives blood to Furiosa, saving her life, and the Citadel's people celebrate Joe's death, accepting Furiosa, the wives, and the Vuvalini as their new leaders. Max and Furiosa share a glance before he leaves.
What's the deal with his acting in this way? He's always like,
So I feel like this is the most interesting.
I like to talk like this in this movie.
It almost seems like every one of his lines is like, it's like a Bane situation where they like redid every one of his lines.
He does sound kind of ADR like. Hey,
Yeah. But
it's lip synced.
I'm pretty sure a bunch of it is ADR because like it seems like I've seen movies where Tom Hardy has a very like he's up here and he's doing like his natural voice is sort of up here, but then he like can go really down when he wants to. So I feel like maybe that's what happened here.
I think
Because then when he opens up, it's so deep. The opening. When
the opening.
I'm just so bad. It's like down here. The opening
You don't even
narration.
think that it sounds like him, yeah.
Yeah.
He probably just like took the hugest drag of something and then like coughed his whole lungs out, chased that down with some like 12-year-old scotch and was like, okay, let's do this. Let's do this read. Like he still has smoke in his lungs while he's doing it.
Yeah.
No.
I've not seen any of the other Mad Max movies. Have you
don't
guys
need
seen
to.
them?
Yeah, I've seen them all.
Yeah.
I think the second one's the best.
It's definitely the best, but I don't think you need to see that to enjoy
No.
this. This is totally like, it's connected, but you really don't need to.
And that's interesting. I actually want to talk about that storytelling philosophy a little bit later, but
Why not now?
well, because we're talking about this other thing right now. To me, he sounds like you know when someone does a voice and their own voice is still in it?
Yeah, that's usually what happens.
You're looking at me like, yeah, that's you, James. But anyway,
Oh, like does a crazy voice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I'm doing a voice, but like it's not a good
Right.
It's
because it
yeah,
still
no,
sounds like me.
disappearing to it.
That's what I feel like is going on here. He's at the end of his range, so it doesn't actually feel like a compelling character.
Interesting.
It felt artificially low for sure. And I was kind of like, is this what, because I hadn't seen the other movies and I was like, is he doing an impression of Mel Gibson's Mad Max? Or
don't
is this
think so.
just supposed to be like late age Mad Max and he's just freaking rough, man. He's just,
I think that's more
he's
what it
gruff.
is. It's a man who's breathed the desert air for his entire life.
Right.
And, has given up and, eats lizards.
Fortunately, this character and this actor can do a lot without speaking.
Yeah.
A lot non-verbally.
Well,
Yeah, I
that's
guess
one of the
so.
things.
I mean-
I think the strength of the movie is that like very little is said that isn't just shown. It's like it's such a visual movie that I think a lot of people don't like it because like they're like, oh, there's nothing that happens, but it's actually like it's in those moments to moments. It's in like the action scenes. Like there's such good detailed storytelling visually, and so I think like when people do speak, it almost feels like it's out of place because they're like, why aren't they just doing?
I want to see action.
Do
It's
more.
an action movie. Why talk at all? You know?
It's so actiony that the development of this movie was mostly storyboarding.
Yeah, there was
they had
no
like
script,
3,500 boards or
Yeah.
panels.
I've heard people complain that the plot and because obviously we depend on people talking sometimes to like get what's going on. But I've heard people complain that the plot is sort of confusing because it's a Mad Max movie and you expect Mad Max to be like the main character we follow. But it turns out that it's kind of more of Furiosa's story.
For sure.
Or I would argue even Nux has a compelling arc as well.
He has probably the biggest arc.
Yeah.
He probably changes the most, but
It's definitely not Nux's
it's not
story.
cut and dry though, because Max he's still integral to it. Like,
And he still has growth.
But it's like he's in the movie for 2 seconds.
Who,
almost.
Max?
Yeah, and as a character, like
Yeah.
As a punchy shooty guy, he's in the movie a lot. But in terms of like being integral to what's happening as a character with individual thoughts and feelings and motivations and stuff, he's in the movie for 2 minutes. You know what I mean?
No, I think like his big arc is going from being like a lone survivor to being part of a group and like being willing to sacrifice for others. Like there's that moment
but he's
in the
always
middle well, sort
Continue,
of. But
yeah.
I think you're right. If you look series wise, like he was a policeman who was like out there to keep the good.
Right.
But in this movie, he is like a lone survivor who like does his own thing, is just there to live. But there's that point in the midpoint of the movie after they've had all the fighting, like the infighting on the truck, and they're like they're starting to get along, start to be a team, and they get stuck in the swamp and they need a distraction. So he's gonna go and like leave the traps or whatever. And they're like, well, what do you do? What do we do if you don't come back? And he's like, I guess you keep going, don't you? And it's like that moment where it solidifies that he's willing to now sacrifice for them and like put himself in danger to help them.
Yeah, I kind of think that also speaks to the whole like cyclical nature of the character, which is it's kind of like I want to use the word ordained, but that's not the right word. It's necessitated by the world they live in. So, for example, you could say that Max is like almost like an iconic character in this movie because it doesn't really change. And given the previous movies, like you said, collective versus individual. He went from being a team player as a cop, and then he lives in this crazy, crazy world. He can't trust anybody. So every movie, he goes from like, I can't trust anyone to, I'm going to trust you.
Yeah.
But the world they live in is so messed up. You can't trust anybody. So every new adventure, you basically do have to start back from zero.
Yeah.
And then gain trust because everybody wants to screw you over, especially in this movie where you're literally on the other team. Like you're that guy's number one.
Yep.
How can I trust you?
Wait, who's the, Furiosa is Joe's number one.
I like all the interactions that they have. Like the first time he crawls out of the storm. Well, even before that, when he's on the front of the war rig and he like sees her and they like kind of make contact for a second or eye contact. But then I really love that scene after the storm when he's carrying the war boy on his shoulders and he goes and he has the gun that he knows won't fire. And that whole scene, like there's almost no dialogue. Just like he's just like pointing and it's just so visceral and real. And you're like, that's probably what like these survivor people would be like. It felt like not realistic, but it felt so grounded and believable in this like weird, intense reality.
Yeah, and the franchise I think has that. Like one of the things I really like about the second movie is there's an opening crawl that gets you caught up on the world. And it just always stood out to me. One component of that opening crawl says, when the world goes to shit and everyone's hoarding and people are dying and there's not enough to go around, the only people who survive are the most brutal people.
Right.
And it's like, that's the world we're in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of brutes.
Yeah.
And so that totally tracks with that, right? Where you're just like, you.
Scenes like that and like so much of the world building and the way that all of the characters act and the design of the world as well. It just you're right that this movie is really good at visual storytelling, not necessarily, I'm not discounting the like cinematography actually, but in terms of like all of the visual aspects, they do a good job of working together to get across to us that this really is just like a horrible hellscape. Like it's not a place anyone would ever want to be.
Yeah,
ever.
you know how they set that up perfectly at the beginning? You see that two-headed lizard. And you're like, oh man, radiation and shit. And then he eats it. And you're like, oh, that's how desperate they are. It's a little on the nose and kind of cliche. You're like, he's going to eat it, isn't he?
Yeah. I like that whole montage at the beginning pre that and like how he's just waiting there. And I love when you can, like he has that look, you can't really hear anything and he runs into his car and takes off and you can't hear anything. And then all of a sudden the cars are chasing him. I love that. But that lizard moment is a little tacky. Yeah. Like it's like the CG lizard and like the I don't know.
It's like slurping into his mouth.
It's still writhing around. It's a little much.
I want to stick on the world building because I think that is maybe the greatest strength of the movie. It's all the little things that George, what's his name? George
Miller.
George Miller. It's all the little things that George Miller was thinking about for 20, 30 years. Like when the war boys, when they're bringing and like when they're raising and lowering the cars, you look in the background and like it's like the cogwheels and the people. There's just like 20 war boys walking on them and like every little background. There's just like a little detail that like someone thought of and like you can tell he's been like living in this world in his imagination for so long. And there's no point in this movie where I don't feel like some creative world building element is put into it. Like it never feels like it's like just post-apocalypse. It's like, oh, there's always something. Like even just like the Half-Life War Boys. Oh, they're all like radiated and they all have like these tumors and like I love the blood bag element, like where they keep like the universal donors and like, oh, I just love everything.
All of it like lingo. I was just gonna say that like the lingo.
Mediocre.
I should be in the halls McFeasting with the great boys. Or, like just like little things like that, and you're just like,
that stuff does a lot. Like it's in so little time. Yeah. You like, oh, they have memes, and I can see their values.
They have memes.
No, but
it does mean they're inculcated.
Mediocre.
Oh, that's such a sad moment. I feel so bad for him when he falls and he like sees him. Oh,
I love Nicholas Hoult in this movie.
So good.
That's nuts. Yeah. What I was gonna say about the world building though is that like as a real lore head, there are definitely some things that bother me where I'm like, okay, how are these people surviving? Where are they making the gas and the bullets? I kind of want to see that a little bit. Like they allude to Gastown and Bullet Farm and like, okay, there are places that make this stuff, but it seems like they're pretty lax with using gasoline and bullets.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
It's like
and water too. Like when he lets the water out, I'm like, this is the least efficient way to distribute a what is a extremely scarce resource. And not only that, we never see any of these characters eat or drink the entire movie. Basically, I couldn't remember. So I was like, there were like little things like that that bothered me
Max
about the
the hose at the
to
one
me
part.
though, that water scene, it's like the point isn't like that the water is limited. Like I don't think that water is as limited as they want to make it seem. It's more about him being a god.
Yeah, and power is concentrated.
So I think that works for me because he's not benevolent. He's not trying to give them as much water as possible. He's trying to make them weak and beg. Like I love that line.
Do not be addicted.
Do not be addicted to water. I love that line.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's fucked.
That really set it up. Yeah. That really set it up.
The visual of the water like pouring out of the big skull's head in the mountain or whatever is great.
Even him and Morton Joe is such like he doesn't have too much characterization, but they do so much with the little moments. Like even just the armor going on him is like such powerful storytelling. He's this decrepit man covered in sores. They put the baby powder or whatever on him, and they put this armor on him. This like totally like kind of badass sick road armor with the belt buckle.
Yeah.
But he's just sick and frail. But they just make him like so intense. I don't know. There's just such a cool visual design of that character.
For sure.
He looks really badass.
Yeah, the mask and the like eye makeup and everything. It's just like I feel like I barely even see a human there. I just see like this larger than life character.
Love the name Immortant Joe. That's not a real word, right? That's like a
Immortant.
Like a
well, it's short for Morton Joseph.
No, I mean I think it's
like
another one of
immortal,
these like Mad Max isms where they just like take a word and then tweak it a little bit.
I find every time they do that, it works for me. I'm like, this is just their world. This is just how they live.
Vuvalini.
I don't remember that one.
Vulva? Is that what that alluding? I mean, I don't know.
No, tortellini.
Oh man,
you guys keep setting them up. I'll keep
yeah.
Let's talk a bit about the action of this movie because it's, I think, another great strength of this movie.
Obviously, it's the whole movie.
It is the whole movie.
That's what you came to see.
Yes, it's insane. It's like every fucking action scene is, and they serve such a variety because I think it would be easy. There's a million different versions of this movie that suck and are just like, it's just like desert chases and cars ramming into each other. But like George Miller has found a way to make each car chase feel unique. The stakes are different. Like the balance of power is different. Like I love when the war boys that are on the war rig are slowly realizing that like, oh, like we like something's up.
We're part of something.
We're part of something bad. And then the spiky tribe comes and starts like fighting them. And so they're still on Furiosa's side and they fight and then they kill them and then the other war boys arrive and then the dynamics shift again. And it's like this huge 20-minute car chase. But like, there's so many like elements that are playing and story beats that are unfolding. It's incredible.
Even the war boys that are in chase, they say, "Let's get these vultures off the war rig first, and then we'll attack Furiosa."
Yeah.
Oh, and I love
her like second in command guy. Yeah. I almost like didn't want him to go away as a character.
The guy hanging on the side of the truck.
He seems so he's like following her orders and stuff. He seems like he's loyal and
totally. I love that moment where he's like, "What's happening?" And she's like we're changing and we're going east or whatever. And he's like. He hesitates for a second. He's like, I'll pass it down the line. And he's so loyal to her, like no questioning. I love that.
The internal consistency of like, okay, this is like a weird kind of Viking inspired like cult of whatever. And everything's fucked up. But within, if like you exist in that space, this guy is a decent guy.
Yeah, totally.
He's loyal. He does his job. I imagine that maybe he like has a sense of justice and like in his warped sense of justice. But
well, and even like the movie in such a short amount of time gives you that he's not an idiot. Like that split second of hesitation is enough for you to be like, he gets that something's wrong, but like he is loyal, and so that's going to supersede.
And that she's flexing her, like she's pulling rank, right?
Yeah.
She's taking advantage of the power that she does have
I
as
have
an
questions.
imperator.
In person.
Yeah.
I think it means like it's same as executor, someone who executes.
I think imperator is a word. Maybe.
One who follows through on imperatives.
Yeah, imperator is like a Roman thing.
It's like a legion ruler. It's like a ruler of legions, isn't it?
The definition that I gave?
The Latin word imperator derives from the stem of the verb imperare, meaning to order, to command. It's a Roman thing.
I'm so
I thought it was like a ruler of legions. Like it's like
the English word.
There's a ton of legions in this movie. These guys got them on their necks.
It was originally employed as a title roughly equivalent to commander.
Okay.
Under the Roman Republic. There you go.
Look, I was right for once. Yeah.
Boom.
Let's we haven't even delved into all the action, man. Like there's so many cool little bits. Like even the creativity of how these cars fight each other on the road, and like there's all the little details of like how they're able to repair themselves while they're still moving. Like I love that scene when like Furiosa's under, she's clipped under, she's still fixing because they don't have time to stop.
Because they have
like,
engine 1 and 2.
Yeah, and it's like it's so
Redundancy,
brilliant. But then like all the little things like the cars that have like the levers that can go between them and like drop people on the cars and like
the polecats.
Yeah, the acrobatics of like the war boys like flying and like throwing themselves into any danger. Just like the kineticism and like the creativity of every like problem and solution in the action is mind blowing.
I remember when I saw the trailer for this movie and they had this epic score playing with like a choir, and then the polecats were flying around. It's the shot where Tom Hardy is on the polecat and he swings by and there's a giant explosion with the characteristic like blood orange fire in this movie.
Yeah.
And I just thought like that looks so fun. That is a gas. Like it's a circus of fire. I have to see this movie.
Do you guys like cars? Are you car guys?
No, 0%.
No.
Really?
No.
Oh man, that's funny because I feel like a big reason why the action is like just okay to me in this movie is like because I'm not really stoked about cars.
That's a whole other angle that if I had that, because like my brother-in-law, for example, if he would see any of the vehicles in here and he would be like, oh, that's a 57 blank blank blank, but it's welded to a blah 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 blah. That's crazy and cool. Or like those motorbikes, they don't make any more. It's a whole other thing that I'm not even getting out of this. That I would probably add like 5 points out of 10.
Yeah, I feel like I can appreciate the appreciation of just straight up just fun action things like this, and there are definitely moments where I'm like having a good time. The first fight, the choreography of that first fight when they're when Furiosa's repairing the rig and they're hosing themselves off.
Favorite
and stuff.
fight.
Yeah. So good.
So good.
And everything is so like methodical. It's like a Jackie Chan fight. And I was like, damn, this is really good.
Why do you think that fight is so good?
I just think the choreography is really good. I think that like everything makes sense. They use tools and use things in interesting ways. They like people separate and come together, and then somebody yanks on a chain, and then someone over there gets yanked, and that it's like a chain reaction type of thing.
Yeah, literally. It felt like the hits were really hard hits. Too. Like you did not want to get hit by her wrench.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I love that too because he doesn't. He's just dodging, but he's like fighting for his life to dodge. Like I've never seen someone like whip themselves around harder.
You gotta
It's also high
survive for your
stakes.
life.
It's also high stakes because everyone's exhausted.
Yeah.
And they just got out of a
Crazy storm.
Yeah.
He's had like pints of blood taken from him too.
But from that point on, I feel like I was never really engaged super hard with the action sequences. I think while they were happening, I was kind of like, all right, this is, it's titillating, the flashing lights in front of my eyes. But like for the most part, I wasn't like feeling things. And I think that's because that substance that I want between in action and fights was kind of missing. Like obviously, I feel like you can't really argue with the fact that the best action sequences are one in which it's titillating, but it's also you're feeling something underneath. There's an emotional weight. There are characters that have history together, and I think that a lot of these fights kind of boil down to people who don't really know each other that well, trying to blow each other up, and it's kind of like, all right,
I'd say though, I agree to some level, but I also think that you're not giving the movie quite enough credit for the dynamics that it does present in those scenes where each action scene, there's usually like some element like after that. I think I agree. That's one of my favorite action scenes when they're just like first meeting in the desert and they're just fighting to get onto the control of the war rig. But I think every fight after that is slightly different. Like a lot of it is these people are trying to kill him chasing them. We got to get them off.
Yeah.
But even within the war rig, there'll be a different dynamic. Like there's like early after that, we know that the war boy is hidden on the ship, and we're like, okay, how's he gonna show up? And they're gonna have to fight him, and so we do that. Or like,
I would. To interrupt, I would say I would file that stuff under like technical achievement though, because I'm not trying to argue that like the fights aren't technically super impressive. I think that there is a lot going on in the way that they were able to do all of this stuff practically in a lot of cases is really impressive. And I think that like that's the titillation that I'm talking about. Like when I'm watching this movie, I see all of these moving parts and I see that like this fight is a little different than the last fight, and like we're doing something different. It's not like every fight is the war rig driving and people throwing harpoons at it, although that happens quite a bit.
No, you've got the polecats, you've got motorcycles.
Yeah, there's technical elements that increase in complexity and do kind of end in a climax that is engaging, but it's engaging technically and not really emotionally for me for most of the time.
I totally hear what you're saying. I think they get it right sometimes. Like when Max is bound to the hood of the car, to the interceptor, there's stakes there. Right, and he can't move. That kind of thing. If they had more of that throughout, I think it'd be more compelling. It's not. Yeah, there's a lot of awesome technical action going on, but there's just not I'm on the edge of my seat because I really care kind of thing. Maybe it's because the whole movie's a chase and you just get kind of worn out.
I think that's how I feel. Is like I think that the movie peaks and stays there, and I think that the movie would be served. I think there is dynamics to it, but I think it would be served a little bit better with a few more breathers, or at least like a little more. Like deep breaths, right? Because there is certainly like peaks and valleys, but it never hits like a full like okay, and then we can go again. Although maybe that would make the movie worse.
But like, you know what's just super weird though? It's like, why is it the last movie we watched, Licorice Pizza, not an action movie?
No.
When they're reversing down the hill, that was almost as or more intense than some of the chase elements in this movie.
Yeah, I feel like I was on the edge of my seat in that scene more so than I was ever on the edge of my seat in this movie.
Is it because of your expectation of what you think could happen in the world? Like in Licorice Pizza, you're like, oh no, what if they roll the car and they die? Or like, I don't know. And this you're like their action stars are going to make it to the end. There's no...
Well, I think we've also seen this movie before. Like, this is not the first time any of us have seen.
That's true.
That's true, but I remember the first time around, I was kind of like... I think that it's almost like the opposite of what you're saying, James, unless I'm wrong here, but I feel like in a movie like this, I'm expecting horrible things to happen. Like I'm expecting, like if one of the main characters died, I'd just be like, Like I think I was shocked and saddened by the pregnant lady dying, obviously, because that's like
unexpected,
worse than just a normal person dying.
For sure.
And I was like, oh no. But like for the most part, I'm kind of expecting these characters to have gruesome things occur to them. So it's almost like the stakes are lower because if that happens, I'm gonna be like, eh.
Well,
but in Licorice Pizza, I'm like, if something happens here, that's life altering. That's big plot changing. You know? Yeah.
Thank you. That is what I meant.
Big plot changing.
Fair enough.
That's a term. What I kind of want to talk about the characters because we talked a little bit about Max Furiosa and stuff. What did you like Furiosa? Do you think that she's an interesting character? Like, obviously, she has motivations and she has character traits that I find endearing. But for the most part, I'm like, who is the protagonist? Who am I supposed to identify with here and follow the journey of?
Well, who is Furiosa? You got to watch the next movie coming out
prequel
May 2024, starring Anna Taylor-Joy as Furiosa.
What?
Yes. That was confirmed
as a young Charlize Theron.
Confirmed in October.
Interesting.
Chris Hemsworth's in there too, in the mix.
I feel like that won't be good.
That's the wrong vibe. But maybe she's good enough.
I don't see her as physical.
No.
So we'll see. That'll be interesting.
Well, but maybe
she
it's
is
her
Princess
first one.
Peach, so
I don't think that she couldn't do a physical role. I just, man, there's a vibe I have about this. I'm going with my vibe. I don't think that's gonna be a good movie.
Charlize can kick you in the fucking head.
Yeah, I would I believe it when she can kick ass, and like even though she has her one arm, it's like mechanical. She's like strong enough to just like live with it.
She's gonna nub you.
Her intensity when she's holding on to Max with her arm and then she gets stabbed, like her face is just like, it's just at an 11 all the time. I don't know.
She's such a great actress.
She's great.
Yeah. I just think it's a weird choice to recast her as a younger person.
They thought about de-aging her, but George Miller doesn't think that the tech is there.
I'm okay with not de-aging her. I just wonder if Anya Taylor-Joy is the celebrity choice, not the best choice.
She's definitely a fierce and forceful actor, but I just don't think she's that physical. But maybe she'll prove us wrong.
To me, it feels like, what is it? Terminator Genesis with Amelia. What's her
Earhart.
name? Earhart. Yeah.
He almost
No,
said it.
Daenerys. Daenerys was Linda Hamilton's character. Was Sarah Connor. And it's like Amelia. Fuck. What's her name? It doesn't matter. Daenerys is a great actor. She just doesn't have like the physical intensity.
Yeah.
So it's just not correct.
I don't
It's
think
just
her
not
name's
right.
Amelia. We should spend a long
People are
time on
yelling,
this.
yelling in their cars right now.
Yeah. I just think a prequel is always a weird choice. It's a real gamble to go for a prequel. You either get like a really good filmmaker on there and they know what they're doing, or you're doing a prequel because the franchise is a hit and you know that people are going to go buy
That's
tickets
the
to
one.
get it. So you get whoever you can get to make it,
Yeah.
and then the prequel ends up
Well,
sucking.
and I don't
I
think.
think George Miller's a little more of an artist than that.
Is George Miller doing it?
Yes.
Well,
I don't think anyone else could or would.
well, then there's a guarantee there's going to be some cars and explosions.
And that's all this franchise needs.
Yeah,
It's
it is
all
what
it needs
is.
is like, does it have a ton of practical chases in the desert, lots of cars, things blowing up, and messed up looking mutated people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say with weird names and fetish clothing. That's all you need.
I will say that like, okay, I hadn't seen the previous Mad Max movies, but the what do you call it? Impression I got was that
Imperator.
they're all kind of crazy and it's just like a dark time. And I think the first one is like a revenge story, right? So it's like his family gets messed up, and so that what drives him insane. And so it's like it's all dark. It's all like there's not really a lot of redeeming things there other than maybe revenge. But in this one, I think as we go into the second half, I was pleasantly surprised that there is a real human heart there. And I think that those are the seeds of substance I was talking about, where like during a lot of the fights, that emotional stuff isn't there, but there are a few moments during the movie where I'm like, hell yeah. And like one of those is when Furiosa decides to trust Max, even though it's like you have no reason to trust him. It's like he's more of a liability than anything, and you probably have conflicting desires. But she decides to extend this trust to him and tell him the sequence to drive the truck.
Oh yeah.
Even though there's no reason to. And I just thought that's a beautiful moment because it's like the decision to the act of choosing to trust somebody even when you shouldn't can create mutual trust,
Yeah.
which ends up being super, super beneficial to them. So even though like logically, there's no reason to do it.
Well, there is. He's competent. And his help is
Well, he's
valuable.
competent, but there's
There's a risk associated with.
There's a risk, but like if you were actually looking at the statistics of it, it's like in this world, it's more likely that you're going to be fucked over than someone who's going to choose to help
Especially
you.
by a man.
Exactly. So it's like
You know.
statistically, it's not the logical choice for her to make, but she chooses to make it, and it ends up benefiting them. And I thought that was beautiful.
Yep.
And then the other one is when they clasp hands when they decide to go back to the Citadel, and
Oh,
he holds out his hand, and she's like, "Bam!" I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's go!"
You know where I got a hell yeah? I think actually audibly was when Joe's mask got ripped off.
Yeah.
I was like, hell
it's
yeah.
so brutal.
That-
You don't see much, but like
Yeah, they
it's
don't really
so
show 'em.
vicious.
You just know that
they want to
would
have that
hurt.
reveal at the end, I guess, when
Yeah.
they rip.
And you
the
just
thing
know
off.
like it's just a fitting demise for an asshole like that.
Right. It seemed like something that shouldn't kill him, because it's just his mask, right?
But it's like it's attached to his face or something.
But like rips his jaw off.
That's what it seems.
But then he just
Maybe it breaks his neck, dude.
he's just like old, and
He's just old.
yeah, I guess so.
It's funny. My favorite moments that are kind of like, oh yeah. I think one of my favorite movies in the whole movie is the first time a war boy gets like the crossbow bolts through his head and his like neck.
Oh yeah.
And he's dying, and like he pulls out the chrome shit, and he's just like,
Witness
witness me. And it's when you realize like how like intense they really fucking are, and he goes and he like kamikazes onto
They're
his
zealous.
head. That's a sick moment.
And
That
it's a
shot
great-
is so cool.
It's a great
yeah.
storytelling moment too,
Yeah.
because then we're like, this is how they all want to
Yeah.
end their
Yeah.
like this is the war boy's motivation, and this is what Nux wants.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
that's
love
what-
in that because later in that sequence you see Nux like he pulls out the valves and the levers to get the gas flooding
Yeah,
in the
he's so
car.
excited.
And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna die. He like chromes himself. He pulls the flare, and you see just Max is like, uh-oh. And like you see him like punch and punch and punch. And I think I agree with you where like the earlier stuff has more interesting dynamics, because like in that moment you're like, Max needs to stop this kid from killing himself and also him in this very specific thing. And so when he's like punching, grabs the flare in the last minute and they crash, I think that's such a intense, like that's, I literally can't imagine more intense action movies than what is happening in those moments of Mad Max.
Yeah, I don't know why. We're trying to explain like what makes something tense or suspenseful. And I think in that moment, we all know that if a flare hits this liquid gas, it's gonna explode immediately. It's a delicate situation. Just like we all know that when Joe's face gets ripped off, that would hurt a lot, even though that doesn't show us. It doesn't barely shows us anything, but we're all like, ooh. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. Maybe using those things, the feeling when Max is on the hood of the car of helplessness and what's it called when you're afraid of being in a tight space?
Claustrophobic?
Yeah. That. Those things are what they help add tension. I don't think they're the whole recipe, but they help.
And like I said, I think that there's like technical tension. I feel like some of the fights like on top of the war rig and stuff when like marauders jump on, like those are cool, but like, you know, they're goons, you know, they're faceless goons. And I think that we get introduced to Rictus, and so like Max fights Rictus, but like I don't really care in that moment.
Yeah,
you know, I'm kind of like, this is just a mechanical, like people are punching each other. I know Max is going to survive or whatever. And then like, you know, Furiosa doesn't really get to fight. She's driving the truck a lot, and she like grabs Max as he falls out the window, and that's crucial or whatever. But like, there isn't really like an emotional moment where she like has to fight somebody that she has history with or whatever. Like she ends up killing Joe, and that's cool. I think that, you know, that's a nice end to the arc or whatever. But I think if there was something like that, I think I would feel a lot more.
I think Hux kind of gets that moment at the end where he's driving.
Nux?
Nux. What did I say? Hux?
Yeah.
General Hux.
That's what I'm saying. Nux almost has the most satisfying arc.
Totally. When he like flips the thing so that he can like collapse the arch or whatever. It's a good moment.
He's trying to kill himself the entire movie.
Yeah. And finally gets to kill himself heroically.
He does end up killing him. Yeah, but for the right reasons.
Witness me.
Yeah.
I didn't love that moment. I don't know what about it.
Oh,
like,
really?
That just rang a little bit tacky to me.
I think
just
it's
a tiny bit.
I think it's because he didn't want to sacrifice himself there, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, like when he
wants to
was
live.
trying to sacrifice himself, he was like, I'm going to kill myself now.
Yeah.
But with this, he's like, I'll put I'll weigh down the pedal and then climb over to you, you know? And he wanted to get out of there, but then in that moment, he's realizing that he's not going to make it. So it's like, oh, yeah, you're right. It was a little...
It's the finger out, I think.
I don't know. I think it worked for me, though, because I saw the realization in his eyes as he said that. Yeah.
He's a great actor. He's awesome.
Yeah, Nicholas Hoult. I like that guy.
I love, even like at the beginning when he is plugged into Max and he's just sitting there kind of recharging or whatever. And they're like, the war drums start going and everyone's getting amped up. And he's like, what's going on? What's going on? Tell me what's going on. And like his co-pilot goes and takes his wheel and is going to be like you're done, man. I promoted myself.
Yeah.
And he's like pulling it and he's kind of weak. And then the moment when he like headbutts him and the screen goes white for like a frame.
Yeah.
And then the guy looks like he's going to fight back, but he's like, yeah, no, we're going to like you're attached to a fucking psycho. Let's go.
Yeah, you feel it.
I love it. It's so
he's
intense.
like, I got the crazy blood running through my veins. Yeah. Interestingly, one of the moments where I did feel the most emotion was when Joe is like, Nux is kind of like blessed by Joe.
Yeah.
He's like, am I awaited? And he's like, do this for me, and I will personally carry you to the gates of Valhalla. And he's like crying as he gets sprayed with the chrome or whatever. And he's like, oh, and the music is like swelling up.
Yeah.
And then it's immediately undercut by him falling.
Oh.
But before that, I'm just like, Nux, let's go. Get Furiosa. I'm almost like on his side.
Totally.
Yeah. It's such a great moment.
That chrome meant to be just psychosomatic. Like,
I think so.
It's not like a steroid or anything like that. Or
I think
a drug.
It's just so they look cool, I think.
No, I think that it is like crystal meth.
Oh, is it?
I think it makes them like feel euphoria kind of thing.
Maybe.
And also crazy.
Like it's a whip it or something.
Yeah, that's what I think it
Wouldn't be
is.
surprised.
It could just be, I mean, honestly, if you sprayed a spray paint on your own face, it would, and you had this religious context that they have, it would totally be invigorating.
Fair.
Yeah.
We should try it.
You mentioned the like single white frame as he like headbutted it and stuff, and I feel like there are a few things stylistically in this movie like that are kind of like, I don't know what to say about it, but it's like it almost seems like amateur at times where it's like we did this because there wasn't another option. It's like choosing to put in a white frame instead of like doing something a little more nuanced or something. And so the other thing about in that style that it makes me think of is like the sort of jittery sped up thing that
they do that.
sometimes.
They do that right. It wasn't my stream.
Yeah.
They do that.
I thought I was hitching.
Yeah.
Frame
And it's
rate
almost
issue.
like when I see that, I'm like, this is almost like something I would see in a more amateur movie, like maybe a short student film or something. But it also feels very intentional in this. And so I'm like, it almost works despite being this like same thing that I would see in this other type of movie.
I still don't like it very much.
I'm split on them. There's some that I really do like, I like the white frame. I thought it was like really intense, and it's not too like in your face. I hate when it's this establishing shots and they do the like reality show thing where it's like speeds into like a big vista shot and then like does like the like vroom. But then
it's almost like you expect to hear like a race commentator. It's like they're heading into the stretch now.
Yeah, exactly. Almost like gives me Fast and Furious vibes. But I do like early in the movie when he's been captured, he's been tattooed with the blood type and the the donor info. Love that world building. I think that's great. The donor tattoo. And then he's like fighting for his life. He escapes and he's running. And they're doing the thing where they take away a frame every second. So there's one less frame. So it's like a little jittery, but it's not like sped up or not. It's just like off. Okay. And it makes it really fucking intense. And then he's like running through and he's seeing all the faces. And I found those faces incredibly effective and intense, even though there's part of my brain being like, really? So I don't know how I feel. How do you guys feel about those faces?
Yeah, that's another part. That's another part that definitely like it fits into this category I'm talking about. It is disorienting.
For sure.
I feel like it does look kind of cheap because of the fast motion element there, but man, I think that it achieves its goal. It's disorienting. It makes you feel sort of insane as you're watching it because you're just like, things are going too fast for me to parse right now.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm on something.
And then you're kind of right there with him, right? And it really conveys his mental state at the beginning of this movie. He's like completely broken and messed up.
Fuck, that moment too, right at the end when he gets to the end of the thing, he almost falls over and he sees the hooks that are going up. And the movie, like he runs, jumps, gets on it, and you're like, oh, nice, he made it.
Yeah.
But then the boys just come out with their long sticks and pull him in. And that image of them pulling him in and him like crawling out, it's just like, makes my skin crawl.
And then
so
title
effective.
card, boom, Mad Max, like
so good.
It's great because
you're screwed.
That's a sequence that you would almost expect to keep going in like a more generic action movie. Not that, I mean, this is very generic in some ways.
No, I don't think so.
In some ways, in terms of like it just being like crazy cars, explosions, big chase. You know,
I think
like
it's unique. I mean, it is
unique.
an action movie, so obviously being part of a genre, there's going to be through lines, but
But all I'm saying is that in a different type of like dumb action movie or whatever, you would expect him to like go and hook onto that thing and then like, oh, it swings around and then the chase continues. But it's like, no, that's where it stops and they grab him and his escape attempt ends. You know, it's so I thought it was like it's a little tiny twist, but I appreciated it.
So I want to talk about a little rabbit hole I went on in preparation for this, which ties into this moment, which is I was like, it's been, I don't know, 6 years since I watched the other ones. I don't remember him having a daughter that he didn't save. I'm pretty sure in the first one he had a son that was an infant. So like, who are these flashback people?
I thought it was the kid of the second
family?
one, right? It's the kid from the second one, or no?
So one of the top Google results is this awesome post on Quora where this person is saying that George Miller actually doesn't really care about canon. He's more interested in the story being told than the story that has been told. Cool. So like if his car gets blown up in multiple movies, it doesn't matter. And if you have, like in the second one and third one, the same actor plays two different characters who are very similar characters. They're both like gyroscope, like helicopter pilots, and it's the same guy, but they're different characters. Like one has really bad teeth, the other one doesn't. They're credited differently in the credits. So like, but if you watch those movies back to back, you're like, it's just confusing. Like, oh, it's the same character, but it's not. So he doesn't give a shit. So if he doesn't tell us, from that perspective, you might be like, yeah, it's his kid. He had a son in the first one, and this one, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And this is less about, it's not like Star Wars, like here's the encyclopedia or the Tolkien bestiary. Instead, it's just you're around a campfire, and this is the legend of Mad Max, and it's like almost like oral tradition.
Yeah, I definitely appreciated that as someone who has not seen the other Mad Max movies, that this movie goes sort of out of its way, but it doesn't feel extra. It feels integrated, and it like kind of tells you enough backstory about him that you know something about his character. And that's all we need to know. We don't need to know the entire lore, like you're saying. Although, as I was saying, it's kind of like it's the guy's name is on the poster, and all we really know about him is he's having these flashbacks or whatever, and he doesn't really like engage with. He's almost like a gorilla.
I used to be Mel Gibson,
but I do appreciate the thematic element there because the narrative or the monologue at the beginning where he's just saying like, you know, all these things have happened to me and like now I'm just a man reduced to a single instinct, survive. And so it's like we understand, you know, it's less bothersome the rest of the movie that he barely talks or that he's barely like an active character because we know that he has been reduced to this single instinct. And so that kind of makes sense. And then we see him like regain a little bit of humanity at the end. But I kind of want to bring it back to that question because we didn't really talk about it.
Well,
like,
hold on, I'm not done yet.
Fine, go ahead.
However,
Uh-huh.
Campfire is the oral tradition, whatever. However,
Yes.
there was, subsequent to the movie, a video game that explained that this girl is a girl that he could not save from one of Joe's sons named Scrotus. And he got caught up in
didn't make the movie.
He got caught up in trying to kill Scrotus. And that is why Max is being chased at the beginning of the movie, and that is why he gets captured.
I almost think that it's better without that, where it's just like, that's just like the danger of being in this world.
Yeah.
Like, I think I like
They
that better.
see your car driving.
yeah,
and
they're like, all right, we're going for you. Like, we're going to get everything you have.
I don't know if it's
that's
better.
what they both work, because that's what previous in the franchise, that's what it was. Like, oh no, like I've been spotted, and now they're going to try to like rape me and take my gas.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is a crazy world we live in.
You don't need a motivation for these crazy gangs to kidnap you and do horrible things to you. You know, it's like, that's just the world you live in. That's the hellscape, you know? Although that is another weakness that I wanted to bring up, the fact that like the villains in this movie are just, you know, you have your Thanos type villain where you can kind of understand their motivation, and like in another reality, you might understand what they're doing and that makes sense, you know? But these villains are they're just evil, you know? And like within the cult, once you get in there, as I was saying, there's some internal consistency, but from our perspective, like, we're on the side of the good guys, and there's nothing to empathize with on the bad guys' side. There's nothing to empathize with there. They're just bad. They're just evil.
He wants his wife back, man. Come on. He wants to control the breeding of this civilization.
Yeah.
You know how much labor they have, all those war boys?
But I think the best is when a villain has morality, right? But it's their own morality. And there are rules to that morality, you know? But he doesn't really have morality. He's using power to control people to get what he wants. There's no like, this is good, this is just on his side, you know?
I think it's interesting though, there's like the little texture bits, like even the fact that he has a son that's like severely disabled and he helps him live a good life. Like he has some level of morality.
Well, yeah, but like that's only utilitarian, right?
It's protect me and my own.
But I mean, like that is morals. He's not a good person, but I think like there is a consistency to his world view. And like, I would say that he's not a sympathetic villain, but I understand why he is doing what he's doing.
Well, okay. What? Really?
I mean, like why he would fight tooth and nail to control power. Like this is
well, yeah, but that's that's exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's like I can understand why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's to have all the power.
Yeah.
That's not super compelling to me, right? It's like if you have an ideology that says, okay, I need to take power and give it to these people because of this moral reason, you know, or I need to have the power to protect people, and he ends up doing evil things because of that. That's compelling. But the example of his disabled brother.
That's a son.
One of his sons.
He's like, maybe he has an attachment to his own family, or maybe he like I imagine that if he had a kid and the kid wasn't useful in some way, he probably wouldn't feel bad about killing him.
Maybe not.
And
though.
I feel like the movie indicates that dude is smart or whatever. He probably is a strategist and he has employees, he's useful in some way. But that's all I'm saying. I feel like the only motivating factor that I see on Immortan Joe's side is power. It seems like he knows that he's lying to these people about the Valhalla thing. So it's not like he actually believes that.
I'd like to
he's manipulating everyone.
Interject here with, wow, what a range of kids this guy had. On the one hand,
classic James.
There's that dude with the upside down feet, and then he also fathered Rictus. God damn.
Yeah.
That's the entire spectrum.
Well,
it's interesting because Rictus isn't perfect because he can't breathe without his apparatus. Like, is that the indication? Or is he so spoiled that he needs extra oxygen
I don't know.
to operate at his best?
I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah, was that like the same reason why they both needed masks or whatever?
Well, I thought Immortan Joe was because like he's dying and he needs extra oxygen just to live. But Rictus seems like he's in great health.
Yeah.
But is that just like a father-son thing where it's like, oh, the true privileged get extra oxygen?
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
I thought it was just like there's such a range because it's radioactive wasteland,
I thought that was just like a fetish mask.
People's genes are fucked.
No idea.
Yeah, they're just doing it for fun.
I thought
had a baby brother, and he was perfect in every way.
See, I like those little moments of texture because, like, I hear what you're saying. That they're not complex villains. Like, it's pretty straightforward. Yes, they're evil, but they add just enough texture to me where, like, he is genuinely sad that he had a brother that was perfect and is dead. And like, he's fucked up in every conceivable way, but like, there's something about that just like does enough for me to like push it into more interesting.
And it's interesting because they immediately use that fact to radicalize everybody, right?
Yeah,
right. I had this thing and they took it from me, and now our whole squad is gonna kill them even worse.
Yeah. I guess that's what I'm saying, right? They have an internal morality where it's like, it's us versus the people who wronged us or whatever. But I just mean, I'm looking for an ideology, a philosophy or something.
I guess the movie, I would say that like, if this was a series, there might be time to delve a little bit more into that. But this is a movie, and it's
a dumb action movie.
I wouldn't say it's dumb.
Pretty dumb.
I strongly disagree. I think like the fact, I think you're slighting this movie, but it doesn't deserve it. There's an intense creativity that goes into making a movie like this come together and work.
Yeah, I'm trying to be very specific with my criticism.
Dumb isn't the right word, I don't think. I think it's simple, but it's like an incredible mac and cheese with like these crazy weird ingredients that somehow come together, and that there's a mastery to
on
making
the Autobahn.
Yeah, sure.
There's only so much a team of humans can do, and they obviously put a lot of their focus in something other than the things that Riley likes.
All I'm saying is that like you can have the best mac and cheese in the world, and there's a few ingredients in there that aren't normally there, and there's like a technique employed that isn't normally employed. Yeah,
air fryer
or something, crumbly breadcrumbs on top.
Those are standard now.
Oh sure, but at the end of the day, it's still mac and cheese. It's not very good for you, and the best meal to me is something that is delicious and nutritious.
Okay, but check this out. When you were watching,
like, you're not allowed to just enjoy a movie for being cool.
Star Wars,
no ad hominem attacks.
Star Wars has a ton of substance, but we're not talking about Star Wars right now.
Substance abuse. That's what you had. When you're watching Rictus, are you like, is that the guy with the sword arm from Shang-Chi?
No, I knew that after though.
It's not.
But he's in something. He's in something. Isn't he?
He's Raiko, that hammer dude from the new Mortal Kombat.
That's
his name is Nathan Jones. The guy from Shang-Chi is Florian Munteanu.
Yeah.
But yeah, those guys are gifted.
Yeah.
Okay, what's with the bird people in this movie?
The bird people?
Oh,
the crow stilts people.
You just kind of like slid into hit picks and nitpicks without telling us.
No, I didn't.
This is a main point.
This is a question.
Okay.
What's with them? What do they mean?
Yeah, they seemed fun.
I think it's just like a level of, I always just see it as like a thing of spirituality where like crows would survive in the post-apocalypse. And so like we have respect for animals, and things are like radicalized once it's all life or death. Everything in your life is life or death. And so you idolize, you spiritualize animals, and then you become a crow cult.
Oh, you think they're like a crow cult?
Mm.
Oh, okay. I just looked at it as a practical, like it's a swamp, and it makes more sense for us to walk around in these stilt things than
maybe.
And they're dressed weird because everyone's fucking dressed weird, like.
And they're just scavenging like the seeds that used to be in that.
But that
land.
That headcanon is valid. You can have it.
Well, I think that's one of the things I like about this movie is that they give you enough that you could imagine more.
Right.
Where it doesn't feel like it's just like, hey, like, yeah, we need to fill this space. Like we need a couple other generals. Let's just put in like other post-apocalypse looking people. No, we're gonna give him fucking nipple clamps that attach to his nose plug. Like,
yeah.
That was one of my nitpicks, or not. I mean, sort of mid picks, I guess, because I was just like, I saw it and I was like,
they're just picks.
Oh, this guy's so gross. I don't know. He's just like sitting there looking out on the horizon. He's just like fondling his nipple. I'm like, oh, that's such a great little detail, but I hate it. You know?
But,
it totally makes sense though, because in this kind of culture, it's like, you can do whatever you want. I'll kill you, whatever.
Exactly.
Who's going to say anything to me?
Everyone's opening out there about their kinks. And
There's no such thing as normal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You criticize me, I'll just kill you.
That's definitely one of my hit picks of the movie is that even in like the background casting, they just cast like weird looking people.
Hell yeah.
And so you're constantly like, yeah, this world's fucked up. Just by the way,
there's a bunch in Australia.
This is Australia.
Oh, James.
Yeah, there are other white people.
Get them.
You can do whatever I want.
Get them.
Get them, James.
One of my hit picks is I never have a hard time reading the action in this movie. Like it's just clear what's happening, like who's fighting, what's going on, like what the where things are, the geography of the scene, and I think that's a huge skill,
especially in a movie like this.
Yeah, where everything's just moving nonstop. It's wild, and I think that's one of my big hit picks of this movie.
You would expect things to be a bit more muddled with like all the stuff going on. Totally. There's like so many vehicles and like people are just, there's like an explosion in the fight scenes. There's an explosion every few seconds. It's crazy.
It's wild.
Yeah. I agree.
This movie is so crazy. I love that they have a chase in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like you just get right to it. Booyah! We're back into Mad Max. I love that it's one of those movies with the knowledge that it's all practical. You watch it, you respect it more. It's like when you're watching Lord of the Rings and there's like 200 horses. You're like, wow. How did they get all those horses?
To be clear,
or you're watching Ong Bak and he just jumps over a car and knees somebody in the face.
Yeah.
Wow, that guy can jump high. Remember Ong Bak?
Yeah.
Tony Jaa, baby.
Movie.
I think I watched both.
Protector's pretty good too.
Were there
that
multiple?
One shot?
There was Ong Bak 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The second one's not as good, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong.
They're
It's the
all-
same with Mission Impossible. I mean, like, that's why the Mission Impossible franchise exists, is to watch a celebrity do death-defying
They
actual
really
stunts.
did that.
Yeah.
So when you're watching this movie, I just have to say out loud, like multiple times to my uncaring wife, I'm like, they have this whole parade of semi-trucks and spiky punch buggies careening through a canyon at 100 kilometers an hour, and then this helicopter just goes woof and gets this awesome sweeping shot of it, and that's it. It's just 3 seconds, but that just took 2 days.
Yep.
Yeah,
like that's
yeah,
just insane.
It's honestly
right.
What they put into this movie.
To be fair, though, I think I saw some breakdowns of like the effects and stuff, and there was a lot made about like there's no CGI or whatever, but
There's
like
CGI.
there's lots of CGI.
Well, the
it's just used
canyons
to
are-
kind of
yeah.
like enhance what's already there.
The big one is like the
Except for the
canyons
sandstorm, I'm
are
pretty
often
sure.
not there. It's like they're either created or brought in digitally. So there's a lot
Right.
more room and it's a lot safer. Like
Yeah.
it's not like if they move this way, they're going to hit the canyon and explode.
That's right. But I did see a featurette of when they did, when they take out that canyon archway.
Yep.
So they built up this little archway. There's no canyons all around it, and it's not naturally occurring. But they did have to explode and slide on its side that semi-truck into that pocket right there, right?
Wow.
And they did it. In one shot, they did it.
Yeah.
There's some really crazy stunts. Like a lot of the, like when the war boys will fall off a car and they'll hit the ground. And it's like, there's like CG to stitch it all together, but like there's actually people jumping off cars at like 50 kilometers an hour, like rolling and like they're really fucking getting hurt. Same. And there's some that are less good. Like there's one where the car falls into one of the traps early on, and it's just like it's like a hole with a wire, and it hits
and it totally does a somersault.
And
I watched that twice.
Yeah, there's like one of the shots that is the practical shot, and it looks incredible. It looks so good, but then there's one that's like a CG enhanced shot, and it just looks like off because it's 2013 CG. But man, when it's the practical stuff, it's mind blowing. There is nothing as cool as some of the stuff.
In the early one where they're Mad Max is in the Interceptor and they're trying to get him in the first scene before they capture him. I think they were trying to break the record for a car stunt with the most rolls.
Oh wow! Did they pull it off? Do you know?
I don't know, but probably
Casino Royale has it.
That's what I'm looking for in a
really?
Mad Max movie.
For it's the DBS.
The most rolls. How many rolls are they going to do in this one?
Have I told the story of the DBS roll, the world record in
Dragon
Casino
Ball
Royale?
Super?
I think so.
Basically, they were using a DBS, which is a very expensive sports car, and they needed it to flip because he sees Vesper on the road and he has to let go. But they couldn't get to flip. The air, no matter how much air pressure they put, it wouldn't flip. It would just like balance out and go. And so eventually, they put enough pressure, and it launched. And like it's in the movie, like it gets like 50, like not 50 feet, but like 10, 15 feet of air, and it like catches the wind, and it flips, I think, like 11, 12 times. And so that's the world record for most car flips in a movie.
Oh my gosh.
In this one, they did a good job of making it look like a oneer.
Yeah.
Like it rolls and rolls and rolls. I think the camera does go right up to the stunt driver. Then there's like a sand wipe, and
he
then
crawls out.
he's in there.
Oh, so good.
It is very good. And yeah, the way they did the semi-truck one is he's going like crazy fast, and then he has to like jackknife it. There's one of those feet. It's like attached to the car. Little foot goes and knocks it over.
Oh, okay.
And then like, what are the odds that he's going to be on the side? He's going to be able to steer this truck or make it crash in such a way that on its side it lines up into this doorway. And he did it. And so they have these really seasoned stunt people that have been throughout they're like 50 when they're making this movie, and they've been present throughout the franchise. And so they're more like coordinators, but then with certain stunts, they have to be like, I'm the only one that can do this.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to make another person do this.
It's
I don't
probably
feel comfortable
exceptionally dangerous. Yeah.
That's just, so hats off to those folks.
I hope
Insane.
that they are able to step it up with the next one. I'm worried that part of what makes this movie so good is that he had 20 years, 30 years to envision these stunts and like think about it and like do the storyboarding, like seeing those pictures of them in the room, and it's just like a room full of little drawings. Like I think there's an element of just time.
Dude, it's going to be 9 years.
That's fair. 9 years is a long time. It feels like it's so much more recent, but
Or even more, maybe 11, 2013 to 24.
oh yeah, 11 years by the end of it. So okay, maybe I'm wrong. So maybe that's what this movie needs is 11 years in between each
And
one.
Hemsworth.
I have a more thematic hit pick. Furiosa's yell when she learns that the green place isn't real, or is just the swamp anymore. Like I feel like that's a great acting showcase for Charlize Theron. I mean, like there's not a lot going on there, but like I felt the emotion because she she's like, oh, I'm looking for redemption. I'm going to this place. You know, I have an objective. And when she learns that it's not there anymore, she basically drove this whole way for nothing at that moment, she's thinking. And she like lets her prosthetic out and she kind of like wanders away and she just like yells.
Yeah.
I really felt it at that moment because it's like, because the movie has done such a good job of like painting this hellscape, you do not want to live here. And she was like, there's this one place that still inspires hope and like, you know, there can be peace here maybe.
Yeah.
And it's gone. There's no hope anymore. They're like, what's the point?
Yeah, the slow unraveling of it. Where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, you came from there.
Yeah.
And they're like,
And as Max says, it's like they're about to ride 160 days into the salt flats. There's probably nothing out there, but they're just about to do it because they're like, there's nothing else. What is there to do? We might as well just kill ourselves the slow way.
I do love like ideologically what it means that they're basically like at that point of the movie, they're like, the only thing now is to go back and beat them there.
Right.
And I think that's kind of a cool idea where in this world of like it's just like all intense, it's all full intensity all the time.
Yeah.
That's how they overcome is where they're like, oh, they went all in and that's how we beat them. Is like they made a mistake. They chased us with everything they have.
Right.
Now we can beat them with that. And I think that's a cool little like normal people take how normal processing or normal like problem solving would overcome this crazy post-apocalypse processing.
I have an adjacent hit pick to yours, Riley. That part where she screams, that's when she walks out into the sand and drops to her knees, right?
Yeah.
That shot is so cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a sweet shot. Like, I was like, wait a second. Is that just a natural phenomenon, like the sand blowing over, and they just happened to capitalize that and get that shot at that time? Like,
Yeah,
that is
maybe.
a beautiful shot.
It's so cool. Yeah.
It's iconic. It's like sizzle reel
It's a
material.
painting.
Yeah.
If you worked on that in VFX or something like that, yeah, put that in my sizzle
I'm
reel.
going to
for sure.
screenshot that and sell it as an NFT.
It has to be a GIF. Not a GIF, though. That's too low resolution.
Hit pick for me when
You don't have the rights, Riley.
did you guys see that the NFT bros that bought the Dune book?
Something like that. I
So
wouldn't call them NFT bros. They're like DAO people, right? Like,
I thought they were like a crypto exchange. Like they were like a specific.
okay, well, I don't know much about this story, but I know that a lot of people were trying to buy a physical copy of the U.S. Constitution recently.
No. It's they bought a copy of Dune.
No, I know that.
Oh yeah.
But like, what it is, someone's just like, hey, there's an auction for this thing. We should buy it as a group that doesn't have any leader. It's a decentralized group.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with this, I think.
Oh yeah. But they
DAO.
they bought it with the hope of
A DAO.
they would have the rights to make like an animated series and stuff because they thought owning this thing for this book would give them the rights because that's how
Oh.
crypto works, I guess. Or
They
that's
screwed
how.
up.
NFTs.
Yeah, that probably. I know with the other one, the Constitution one, there were some very talented and knowledgeable people involved, but it really was inside of 7 days, they went from this idea to raising $3 million. So in this case, they probably just had less knowledgeable people and just as much enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because the same book or another version of the book had sold for like $42,000 like a couple weeks ago, and then this one sold for $2.6 million. And like they put a post when they won it. They're like, nice, we're gonna like get this out there. We're gonna like do all these things.
That's an exciting idea, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? If this becomes a movement where like, oh no, the public domain now owns Dune,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
gonna make all these shows.
that
and
would be
shit.
cool. But
That
that's,
would be cool.
Not how it works, unfortunately.
Not going to happen.
But yeah, hit pick when I can't remember the exact fight, but when Furiosa stomps down on the foot pedal, and it's like that foot measuring.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
shoe store thing.
Yeah, and it slams down. But then she like grabs her crossbow, whips open the door, and in like one motion, like headshots the dude and like comes
Yeah.
back. Buddy, so sick.
Badass.
So fucking sick.
I loved how the boots are a recurring meme in this movie.
It's actually throughout the franchise.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Ah, well, look at that.
There you go.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Like it keeps coming back, and you're like, oh yeah, the boot.
I got his boot.
Yeah. What do you guys know what Max was doing at the end there, where he's like picking at the fabric with his like he's dipping a needle in his blood and then drawing on a fabric or something?
Nah, I don't have that in my.
I like saw that. I'm like, oh man, they showed that for a reason. What is that? I didn't even know what he was doing. Yeah.
There's a part
too
where
bad.
he like
Leave it in the comments.
someone shoots like a crossbow or something at him, and he blocks and he goes through his
Oh,
hand.
yeah.
And then he just kept his hand up there for so long. I was like, put your hand down, man. But then when he finally does, he actually has to like pull his hand
Yeah,
out.
it's
So it's
stuck.
like it actually had impaled his hand and gone into his forehead
And
a bit.
the arrowhead was still in his
Yeah.
forehead.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
That was hilarious.
But that was great because it was foreshadowed, right?
What do you
Like
mean?
he has a vision where the girl like reaches up at him really fast and he puts his hand up on his head like that.
Oh,
You guys didn't see that?
I missed that.
That's why that was so cool because
You're
it was
so
like
cool.
foreshadowed because he does that earlier and then it blocks the same motion saves him. So I guess the girl is his daughter after all.
He's gonna adopt her for that one. Thanks.
My other hit pick is how cool that steering wheel is. The Furiosa one, like the little detailed, like I don't know what the texture of it is called, but like in 4K it just looks so freaking crisp and beautiful. And I'm like, I would love to have that in like my room.
Nitpick.
I was just gonna say I like that little detail that they all have their own little wheels and they're all custom.
More world building.
Yeah.
Nitpick, when those cars are behind the Warwick, and they're like harpooning onto it and dropping plows.
Yep.
Those plows look underpowered, man. Like I feel like that truck would just be done.
Oh, really?
Those 3 plows get down at the sound. You're stopping, aren't you?
No, it's the war rig.
Yeah, true.
I love how complex the war rig is.
Yeah.
Like it really makes it makes it feel less like just a truck and more like a ship or something.
Like when the engine catches fire and then you realize that the plow can drop and then pick up the sand to put out the fire. Like that's a cool when you face so many encounters.
Oh, that's why they dropped that cattle guard thing?
Yeah, is that it puts
I
up
thought
the
they were
sand
trying to
and blocks
blind
it.
the people around them or something.
No. It's puts out the fire. And I'm like, that's cool. It's just like such a cool little thing. And I love it. Every detail in this movie, I just love.
Lots of details.
Even a post-apocalyptic orc humans can engineer really well. Yeah.
Dude, this is a good sound design test. If you have like a home theater, you want to crank it up to reference volume, this sound mixing in this movie is awesome.
Yeah. It's so layered too. The music's so incredible, so visceral, and I even love. And it's a mid pick. The friggin' guitar.
You gotta mention the guitar.
You have to mention it.
The speaker truck.
It's hilarious. They might go to it a little bit too much, and I hate when there's like the 3D effect of the guitar stretching towards the camera.
So
I hate
cheesy.
that. But the first time you see it and like the fire's coming out, you're like, oh yeah, this is pretty sick.
No, that was great. I love that.
It's cringe. Like again, my wife being like, the fuck is this? But as
my wife did the same thing.
explained to her, it's internally consistent. Like war drums are a thing, have been for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And this culture that they have in this movie, I could see them having this guy.
Oh,
yeah.
totally.
They're basically Vikings.
He does play for a really long time though. Maybe you switch him out.
Yeah.
Your hand would just be so.
Yeah. No, I like how he was like suspended though, and he was like moving around. I don't know. It was just
face all
really cool.
bandaged
He's like a guitar gimp.
Really visually and auditorily, audio.
Yeah. But I also want to talk about the cinematography. We talked about it. It could have been really boring, but they actually do a good job with the variety of color. Like it's all orange and blue, but it's different hues of it. And depending on where they are, how close to like toxic areas, the intensity changes. Like the closer they are to the home base, it's like it's orange, and then they get further away and it becomes a more natural hue, and it becomes like all the colors kind of settle down. And then when you get to the swamp, it's like full blue. The night is like blue.
And then you get that Zack Snyder sandstorm.
Yep.
I didn't like when they were in the swamp or whatever, and it was like so blue, and then some lights like illuminated them with full color.
Yeah.
I was like, this seems weird. Like,
there's a couple.
It's visually interesting, I guess, but it just bothered me. I don't know.
I just appreciate that they went out of their way to make, even though the movie is post-apocalyptic like palette, to make that palette as varied as it could be.
Yeah, maybe that's why it thematically or in terms of style, it just seemed like inconsistent. Like the rest of the movie seems pretty real in terms of the coloring, and then this was all of a sudden like Zack Snyder in his most comic booky, and I was like, sure. I don't know.
I don't know if this exists, but I just thought of this word. Someone should make this post-apocalyptic.
That's got to be a thing.
Actually, it's copyrighted now. I just did that online here.
And it's Furiosa branded.
It's for me now. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys. David has to go. Just joking.
So do
it's Riley. I would like to talk more about who's the protagonist.
Riley, get out of here. Me and James can talk about it.
That's what I wanted to talk about. I brought that up like 3 times. You guys didn't talk about it.
Max is just not involved in the all is lost moment.
Furiosa's the protagonist. That's the story. Okay, bye-bye.
Anyways, tweet at us at TJMPod. Email us hello@they'rejustmovies.com and come next week, guys, when we're going to be covering, what is it again?
Beauty and the Beast.
It's just called Beauty. It's an anime.
It's called Belle, yeah.
Oh, it's called Belle.
That's
French.
It's not Beauty and the Beast. It's not.
But it kind of is.
But it is. It's
I
VR.
thought you were saying you were going to talk about it right now. I bet we did.
See you later.